Weekly, GarageBand, GarageBand Weekly, GarageBand Weekly. Ooh. Need an answer to your question, John, you'll have a suggestion. He's a fountain of all knowledge. I think he might have gone to GarageBand College. What he doesn't know, we'll try and find out. So join the chat and give him a shout. Hey, John. Hey, John. GarageBand Weekly.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. You probably want to see me, or maybe you don't. Who knows? Welcome into GarageBand Weekly. My name is Pete Johns, and for the next 30 minutes, we're going to be talking all things GarageBand and Apple and creativity and home recording and all of that jazz, and a bucket of fish, of course. Welcome in if you're watching live. I like to call this week's show The Football Is On, but if you want something to watch on the side, you can watch this show. If you're watching on the replay, hello to you as well. If you have any questions at all you need to do is put a big fatty old Q in front of your question. And don't forget that if you want to check out all of my GarageBand information, you can just head on over to studiolivetoday.com/GarageBand. It's your one-stop shop for all my GarageBand schlop. Yeah. Today we're talking compression. If you want to jump straight to the bit about compression and miss all this intro and all this repertoire, you can do so by jumping to the timestamp linked down in the description. We'll say a quick g'day to the folks who are here live, and then we'll dive straight on in to compression. I know it's something that many of us hear about and we think we know about, and maybe we do, or maybe we just need a little bit of a brush up. So either way, we're going to be breaking it down and showing you some practical example of it here today. Hello to Mark Bro. Hello, Ashley HM. Our wonderful moderator, Thomas Christ, is here, as is Skeeter Melody. Hello to you. Hello, the Falcrow. G'day to Brad Example. And g'day to Alex Bacchus up there in Germany. I hope you are all doing very, very well. And yeah, bucket of fish. So we've got I've only got one item here. It's still kind of the quiet time, or is it? Because since we last met, there's been a big announcement. It just happened on last week's show, so I didn't have time to kind of absorb it all. But the Vision Pro, the Apple Vision Pro, has finally been announced, or at least its order date and its release date have been announced. So you can actually order it in a few days' time, and it's coming in early February. Yeah, am I ordering one? No, $3,500 US and a lot more for us Australian friends. No, I won't be getting one anytime soon, but I will be in my armchair with my popcorn, watching and waiting and anticipating what goes on, because it's going to be fun spectator sport, isn't it, to see what people have to say. Here's my prediction of what people will have to say. The Apple fan people and the people that injected a whole lot of money into it will say it's great and it's amazing, and yes, it's a first-gen product, but it's going to be the future, the revolution, everything that we've been waiting for. And then the clickbaiters are going to be like, why you shouldn't buy the Apple Vision Pro, Apple's biggest mistake ever. And the actual answer will be somewhere in between. With all of these things, with all these launches, it's usually all over here, truth goes down the middle. So that's what I think about that. But if you are going to buy one, I would love to hear your feedback. Please let me know. Send me an email, pete@studiolivetoday.com. Follow me on the social places. Studiolivetoday.com is the place you can find everything and all the ways you can get in touch. Thanks for the questions coming in. We've got Bongs on the beat and Brad Example. I will answer questions at the end. We'll have a Q&A section when we have finished talking about compression. All right, you ready? What is compression? Well, first of all, we've got to define why it's different from other types of compression, because when people say compression, they sometimes mean file compression, which just means taking a big file and smooshing it down and making it a small file. Is that what we're talking about? Are we talking MP3s and M4As? No, we're not. We're talking about dynamic range compression. That is the full and technical name of it. And how do I know that? Because Wikipedia told me so. It's called dynamic range compression. And compressors used to be, and still are, outboard units that you would plug a microphone or plug your audio signal into, and they would provide dynamic range compression for your audio signal. And what does that mean? It means that it squashes down the peaks. When you've got an audio file that's going up and down like this, you've got peaks of that audio file. And what a compressor does is when it gets over a certain threshold, which we'll explain in detail in a moment, it actually squashes it. It removes those peaks, and that creates a more even performance. Instead of it being all spiky, it's kind of got a buzz cut, like you've taken a razor and cut the tops off of it. I like these demonstrations, but I won't show you these because you can look at this in your own time. But basically, it does gain reduction. When it hits the threshold, it does gain reduction. The amount of gain reduction or the amount of chopping off of those peaks it does is dependent upon the ratio, the amount of compression you apply. So there's two things that we're going to talk about: threshold and ratio. Threshold is when the compression kicks in. Ratio is how much compression kicks in. So they're your two key things to remember. Go to Wikipedia, type in dynamic range compression if you're a giant nerd like me and you want to know all the details on the history and how it's used and how it works and all that jazz. But you know what we're like on this show? We're a little more practical because we're in GarageBand. This is GarageBand Weekly after all. So we're actually going to dive in and take a look at compression in the real world. So what does it do and why would you use compression? If you've got a signal, if you've got, say, a vocal or a guitar in particular, they both work well for compression because they are dynamic instruments. When you sing, you can sing very quiet and loud, and you might need compression. Not to squash it and make it go sound like when you sing, you don't always want to sound at the same level, but just to add a little bit of consistency to your sound overall. So let's give you an example here. Here is my song. This is called Grown Ass Man. It's my song timbre song from a couple of years back. Let's do a quick sound check to make sure it's working here. Never one for going hard. Never had a fear of missing out. Looks good, sounds good. So this is my vocal, and this vocal has compression on it. I'm just using the GarageBand compressor on this one. You can see there that if you look at the actual waveforms of this vocal, and yes, it was probably recorded a little bit too quietly, see how some sections are like louder like that, and then you've got some words that are really quiet down there. Well, this is what compression is going to help us with. So if we come back to the start of this one, and let's just solo this and take a listen to this part. Never had a fear of missing out. Never happy in a crowd. So you can see there that you're not really hearing those differences. Let's go in here and turn off the compressor. So we're going to come in here. We've got a bunch of other effects on here that are just doing things like reverb and EQ and a little bit of drive there, a little bit of distortion. But this compressor that we've got set here, we've got the threshold set, we've got a ratio of 3.5 to 1, we've got the attack, and we've got no additional gain, and it's mixed in at 100%. We'll explain what all that means in just a jiffy. Let's turn this off and listen into this passage, shall we? Never happy in a crowd. Did you hear there that it's like never happy in a crowd? It's kind of going up and down. Just so that we can hear this a little better, I'm going to use a little hack here and turn the gain up here just while we're soloing this, just so you can hear exactly what's going on. So listen to this again. Never happy in a crowd. Never happy in a crowd. It's not quite right, is it? Yet it's in the ballpark. But as soon as we add the compressor and play it here now. Never happy in a crowd. Do you hear how it's actually a lot more consistent? Why is that? Because every time it drops below that threshold, or every time it goes above the threshold, actually, it is adding compression and it's pulling everything back up. The compressor here in GarageBand has auto makeup gain, which is why it's louder. Because you might be thinking, Johns, if you're saying that compressing is turning down the peaks, why does it sound louder? Why is it that when I play the first version here like this, never happy in a crowd, that it's actually quiet, and then when we play the compressed version, even though we haven't turned the gain up at all, never happy in a crowd, it's much louder? Well, that's what compression is all about. It is bringing it up. It is increasing the volume, but it's after you've actually squished down the top. There's an easier way to see this. I'm actually going to show you this. I'll go to a different phrase because let's come down here and play this part here. This is the chorus of the song. I've done all that I can. Please take me home. And yes, for folks in the chat, yeah, I should do Grown Ass Man 2 and 3. Get off my lawn and yelling at clouds. That would be absolutely great. So here is our compressor. And again, if we play it. I've done all You can hear there that it's nice and consistent. Without the compressor, it's going to be, I've done all that I can. Please take me home. See how it's getting softer towards the end there? And in a normal vocal, you don't want that. Because if you bring everything back into here, take a listen. I've done all that I can. Please take me home. Hear how it gets drowned out at the end there? Whereas as soon as we put this compressor back on, now take a listen. I've done all that I can. Please take me home. Much more upfront, much more present. But that's all you can't really see that. You can hear it, but you can't see it. So let's turn that compressor off and let's add a compressor that we can see. And the one that I love for this is called Channel Strip. It's by Audio Damage. If you know Audio Damage, they do some cool plugins like Rough Rider 2 and other plugins that are cool. This one costs you maybe $1 or $2. Someone can check the App Store if you like. It's usually about $2 or $3, not much. And it's a channel strip. It's an old school channel strip. It's got a noise gate, it's got an equalizer, and it's got a compressor. And that's all. It's basically like you've got a mixer, like an old school, old style mixer. It's sideways instead of up and down, but that's more an interface thing. So if you've ever seen like an old mixing desk, this is what they look like. And the reason is that they've usually got some sort of gate, some sort of EQ, equalization, and some sort of compressor. The cool thing about this compressor, if we solo these vocals, is that when we turn it on, it gives us a visualization of this. And as Thomas Christ in the chat saying, the Apple AU compressor is also very good and gives you a good visualization as well. This one I think is just even simpler. So when we turn this compressor on, you can see we get these two lines here. And what are these two lines? Well, these are your threshold and your audio level. Now, at the moment, we're not playing anything, so we're getting no level. But if we hit the play button, take a look at what we see. I've done all that I can. Please take me home. So if you're looking at that little line up the top there, you'll see that the audio level is not reaching the threshold. Just watch it again. I'll play it again for you. I've done all that I can. Please take me home. So this is the equivalent of when your threshold, a lot of people, I see their compressors and their thresholds are set, but it's at a higher level than the maximum volume on the track. And if your threshold is set at the higher volume than the maximum level of your track, you know what your compressor is going to be doing? Nothing at all. And I see people do that and then they'll turn up the makeup gain. Because I could do that. I could turn the makeup gain up here. I've done all that I can. Please take me home. But you know what that's doing? That's just turning up the volume. At that point, it's just turning the volume up. And that's why I like this, because it's a visual representation. You can see the amount of compression that's happening. And as we showed in the first demo, the first part of this, the reason you don't just want to turn the volume up is your loud parts will get way too loud. So yes, it'll bring your quiet parts up to the right level, but then your loud parts will also go up. So a compressor pushes those loud parts down and brings everything else back up. So let's adjust this threshold knob. And you can see as I turn the knob, it comes down. And it's everything from -60 all the way up to 0 dB. So as I play it this time, I'm going to bring this threshold down and you'll see as it starts going above the threshold. I've done all that I can. Please take me home. So this is when I'm talking about peaks. When people talk about compressors and they talk about compressing your peaks, this is what they mean. When you set your threshold, you're setting the level of what you want to chop off. So let's play it again. I've done all See your line there? That I can. Please take me home. So once we actually add some ratio to this, what it's going to do is the little bits where it's going up over there. So I've done all. When it's there, it's going to be compressing. When it drops below that threshold, no compression is going to be added at all. So that's the way to look at it. And a lot of people get to the compressor and they get super confused. But it's really just that. It is two measurements. It's threshold and ratio. Yes, we will talk attack, release, and makeup afterwards. They are important, but they're not as important as your threshold and your ratio. So we've got our threshold set to somewhere where we know compression is going to take place. Now we turn up our ratio. Remember our nerdy graphics over here? Remember this one? Well, this button here, that's your gain reduction, and that's where the ratio comes in. How much gain reduction we're actually going to get. So we start with a 2 to 1 ratio. which means it's going to be a small amount of compression. So let's put this to 2 to 1 and take a look at our meter again, and you'll see what happens. I've done all that I can. Please take me home. Not much, right? But as we drive this further up, like so, you'll see that more compression starts kicking in. I've done all that I can. Please take me home. In fact, it was not going above for long enough to actually do it there. So I've actually dropped the threshold a little bit more just so you can see this more clearly. But let's do it here now with the threshold a bit lower, because you'll see not only when it's going to compress, but how much compression is actually taking place. Take another look. I've done all that I can. Please take me home. So there you go. You can see there that as it's going up and down, it's actually doing that. Now, what is attack and release and makeup all about? Well, these ones are a little harder to see, but I'll show you anyway. So with your attack really long, so let's put a really long attack on here, but make sure that our threshold's down so it should be compressing, and play this. I've done all that I can. Please take me home. So with a really long attack, it's got to be above that threshold for a really long time before it starts compressing. With a really short attack, let's bring this down to virtually no time. Now what you'll see is as soon as it starts going above that threshold, it starts compressing. Let's take a look. I've done all that I can. Please take me home. So you can see that that's extreme compression. You can barely hear it because the attack's so quick and the threshold's so low. So you would never go quite that extreme, but it's just a demo thing here. So let's make this a little bit more reasonable and start playing with the attack and the threshold to get it to the right spot. I've done all that I can. Please take me home. So that's more reasonable. You're starting to see there that with a slower attack, then it's not going to just instantly kick in every time it hits that threshold. It's going to wait a little bit of time, and this is how many milliseconds. So 0.2, it's actually seconds, 0.2 of a second, or 200 milliseconds. Haven't done my maths very well there. But yeah, the quicker the attack, the quicker the compressor's actually going to jump in. Release is the exact opposite. So release says that as soon as it comes back down, then if this release is fast, it's going to stop compressing. So let's again go with some extreme compression here. We'll put the quick attack on here and take a look at how quickly this jumps off. I've done all that I can. Please take me home. So yeah, and if we go the other way around with a really long release, it's going to keep compressing for a long time. It's going to take a while before the compressor falls off again. I've done all that I can. See, it's continuing to compress. Take me home. So you generally want to find somewhere in the middle there, and it's going to take trial and error for playing around with compressors, but this is just a good way to kind of show you how this all works. So let's dial in a compression setting that we may actually want on this track here now. So if we play, I've done all that I can. Please take me home. There you go. So we'll go with that for now. Now, the final thing that you have on a compressor is your makeup gain. So again, if I turn this compressor off and play this part, I've done all that I can. It's pretty loud, right? And as soon as I put the compressor on, because it's actually compressing the audio, take a listen now. I've done all it's squashing those peaks. Please take me home. So what you may want to do is actually increase the gain to bring it back up to match where you wanted it originally. So you've squashed down the peaks and now you're pulling the volume back up. So let's turn up our makeup gain here and see what happens. I've done all that I can. Please take me home. That's pretty good. So if we bring that back into our mix, this should sit nicely with the rest of our song. I've done all that I can. Please take me home. There we go. So that is the basics of compression. Again, it can get really confusing if you don't know the meanings of why you're doing things or everything that you're doing for it. But in the very basics of compression are, if you have a sound like this vocal, or like a guitar, or like a drum, or like a keyboard, or anything that you find the volume is variable, then you can add a compressor. You can either use a stock compressor like the stock one here in GarageBand, or you can use something like Channel Strip, which gives you a slightly better control, because you'll notice here that with your regular compressor, you've only got attack, you don't have release. Release is automatic with that one. If you want more control over your release and you want more control over your gain, you can use this one. So one more time, threshold, that is when the compressor will kick in. If your threshold is all the way up here, it doesn't matter how much compression you're adding. I've done all that I can. It's not going to compress because it's not hitting that threshold. So you need to make sure your threshold is at least below your loudest peaks. Otherwise, nothing gets compressed. Your ratio is how much compression takes place there. So a small amount of compression means you get a little bit, or if you want to turn it up to 11, something like an 8-to-1 compression, you're going to get a whole lot more. I've done all that I can. Please take me home. And you can dial it down and you'll get less. It'll do less compressing when it actually kicks in. Your attack is how quickly the compressor kicks in when it hits the threshold. Your release is how quickly the compressor stops working after it comes down from the threshold. And your makeup gain is just a little bit of makeup gain. Just a little bit of extra volume, because your compression by its very nature will reduce the overall volume of your sound. How does that sound? Do you have further questions about compression? The one other question I get, and I got this from an email as well, is, do you need compression on every track, especially virtual tracks? And the answer is a big fat zero, no. Listen with your ears. You will find that some of your tracks don't need compression at all. So maybe if I've got, say, like my guitar track here, this might be, I might have recorded it in such a way that it's got a very consistent volume and it needs zero compression. The other thing to keep in mind is if you're using virtual instruments can actually have compression built into them. So things like virtual drums will often already have some compression built into your drums. The virtual strings, same deal. Guitar amps, same deal. Virtual guitar amps often have compressors right there in the amp that you can set. And even virtual keys. So things like the organ here, if we play this. So I could come in here and I could add the compressor to this, but you generally won't need it because quite often they've actually got compression baked in. Because remember, MIDI is just triggering a sound. And those sounds that your MIDI is triggering often already have compression built into the sound. So if you compress it, you're kind of double compressing it. So listen first, listen to the sound. Don't have a plan, please take me home. And then go, it probably doesn't need compression. So just like EQ, just like any effects that you want to use on your tracks, compression doesn't have to be used, but it can be. The one final thing I'll say about compression is that there's another type of compression called limiting, which is basically, you know, everything we just said about compression. What limiting does is it basically turns that ratio up to zero. So it's a brick wall. It's not getting any further than that. So you'd use limiting usually at the end of a process on a master, and all that limiting is doing is you're saying, here's the volume I want everything to be at. Nothing's going to go over that. If anything goes over that, then turn it down. Make sure it stays at this overall volume. Excuse me. Have to sneeze at the most inopportune time. Yes, a good organ never goes astray. So there you go. That is the basics of compression. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea of some of the things that you can do with your tracks to compress them. And remember, your mileage is going to vary, but yeah, don't just throw compression on for the sake of it. You want to actually analyze your audio and see if you need it. And if you need it, put it on. And if you don't, don't. And don't be afraid to experiment. Just play around with it. You'll get there. I've got a few questions that have come through, so let's answer those, shall we, before we finish off? We've got about 6 minutes to go here on the show. It's a fast show, a good show, what is it? Fast show's a good show these days. Brad says, are you going to do a Logic course like you did with GarageBand for those that need some serious help? I've tried to attack Logic, and to be honest, I had started on a Logic Pro, like more complete guide, and then they released version 1.1, and I'm still learning myself how to use it, and I don't really want to go through it. I've got two ideas around this. One is to do a RTFM, read the full manual series, which is a bit sort of more of a slow-paced and casual kind of, we learn together, or doing more of a curated series like I do with GarageBand, which is sort of more bite-sized chunks and better produced. I'd like to do the latter, but it may get to the point where I just do the former, where I actually do the first one so I can learn, and then sort of version 2 becomes that. I just wanted to make sure that I didn't spend a whole lot of time on version 1.0 knowing that Apple were probably going to release 1.1, which they now have. So now I can start working more on that. But for those that are learning Logic Pro, if you search my name, Pete Johns Pettit, I can't even type my own name, Pete Johns Logic Pro, iPad, that'll help you. And you come over to the YouTubes, you'll actually find my beginner's guide there and my entire playlist. So there's 34 videos in this playlist, Logic for iPad tutorials, and it does go in a pretty logical order, pun 100% intended there. So from the beginner's guide, and then I go through the things that you'll need to learn first.
Right,
so
you can actually use a nice
wait, we
long
don't want to hear
fade.
me. All right, so my beginner's guide's there, which is like a 32-minute like crash course. And then you've got how to import audio, use markers, multiple tempos, multiple time signatures, multiple key signatures, how to export your song, how to use the guitar tuner, how to map your tempo if you want multiple tempos, how to use fade-ins and fade-outs, how to import a MIDI file, 10 keyboard shortcuts you may want to use, mastering tracks in Logic Pro, saving cut, you see what I mean here. It kind of goes in order. I tackled the questions I got the most in the first kind of 10 videos, and then since then it's been little tidbits that you might need to know, including like a full mixing one there. So this is my mixing my entire song in Logic Pro. So there's a heap of videos there already for you, Brad, and for others that may want to dive in. But yeah, definitely things that now we've got version 1.1, I'll be adding to in the future. Question here from Bongs on the Beat. Have you ever checked out Music Studio by Zuten Steinberg? We'd love to know your opinion of what would you mix master songs from there. Should I get Audio Master Pro for Mixer Master? Yeah, so I haven't. Short answer is I haven't. For mastering, right now, yeah, Audio Master Pro is good and simple. If you want a simple solution that you can use unlimited, that's not in the cloud, that you don't have to upload your music, that's not AI, that's just a very simple set of presets for your mastering, Audio Master Pro is pretty good. Grand Finale is quite good on iOS as well. If you've got Logic Pro, there's the mastering suite, which I kind of like. Takes a bit of tweaking to get it sounding right. To be really honest, just using a limiter. If you've mixed it well, adding a limiter to your master is often all you really need. And then if you're looking online, BandLab have free mastering. So if you go to bandlab.com, go to their mastering, it's free mastering. Limitation there is it's only 16-bit. And DistroKid, who are a major sponsor of this channel, full disclosure, have their Mixia, which is actually a really good automated mastering. It's about $99 per year if you want to sign up to that, but you get unlimited masters, and that's all in the cloud. So that's my quick mastering bit there. Any level tips for getting a great snare sound like John Bonham on AC/DC Black in Black? I did see that Gary Hubbs actually mentioned this, and I actually stole one of Gary's tips for getting really cracking snares. So if you actually go to your YouTubes and you search epic snare drum sounds and GarageBand, you'll see this video here. So I actually share Gary's tip there for using a little EQ, a little bit of overdrive or distortion, and you can actually just get that real that crack sound. I can't make the snare crack sound, but you get that real crack sound in your mixes. So I would go and check that one out myself. We are at the end. Yeah, I know. It's all every time I try it, I think I get a little better with compressors. There's a whole bunch more to learn. I honestly recommend, if you want to learn, go over there. Go to the Wikipedia article. It's actually got some really good, useful information. But remember, dynamic range compression. Don't get confused with compression of files or compression of size, because they're very, very different. You are welcome, my friend. Thank you. Good to see you here on the show, and good to see all of you here on the show. We'll be taking a small break. We'll be back on the weekend, but there's some things going on around here at the moment. If you're a part of the Patreon crew, you know a little bit more detail. But my wife is going in for some surgery this week. There'll be some recovery happening, so you'll see some videos, but there'll be clips and there'll be tutorials and things. But we'll be back and we'll be live in the not too distant future. So watch this space, and thank you to all those who have already reached out and passed on your well wishes. So that is going to do it for this week's GarageBand Weekly. What do we say at the end of each and every show? Well, we say this. We say, please, this week, be kind to yourself, folks. Be kind to others. Kindness is the key to everything out here. And don't forget to keep creating in GarageBand or wherever you are creating. That is going to do it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.